The time is now 12 minutes to 9. The Foreign Secretary, Dominic Raab, is under growing pressure about the response to events in Afghanistan at the end of last week and the urgency of getting locally hired UK staff out as Taliban militants surrounded Kabul. A phone call to his Afghan counterpart was delegated to a junior minister and then never happened. The Conservative MP Tobias Ellwood is on the line. He's the chair of the Defence Select Committee and a former soldier himself. Good morning, Mr. Ellwood.
Good morning.
What do you think of the position that the Foreign Secretary is in this morning?
I think it's fair to say that no one phone call would have changed the situation, but it is another reason why we should have an independent review to look at all these details. We are dealing with a live operation and we need to focus on that. What it does expose, though, I think, is the absence of any resolve in our foreign policy, almost a lackluster strategic posture of Whitehall that has been exposed, that does not do justice to what Britain normally does and how we step forward. It was obvious after the recall debate that there's little coordination on security matters across Whitehall. Whitehall lacks the bandwidth to offer the level of statecraft Britain was once known for in understanding the long game. And our foreign policy is reactive, not proactive, lacking clear strategy, lacking confidence in our ability to lead, and lacking coordination with our closest security ally, the United States.
But it would also appear lacking the ability to respond fast to an emergency situation. Now, if the situation was so far gone last Friday that no one phone call would have made a difference to people who had risked their lives to help us deliver our goals in Afghanistan, then why wasn't the Foreign Secretary scrambling back to his desk that day? Why was the Prime Minister going on holiday the next day?
I don't know. These are questions that the government will have to answer. But like I say, this construct that we currently use, continue to use, and it was exposed during COVID as well, is a very tried and tested cabinet construct of decision making. But it's far too time consuming, it's too slow, and it's far too siloed. And it does not work well in an enduring emergency. And has been exposed in COVID and now in Afghanistan as well. We should have had greater influence and understanding of the wider situation to challenge the United States in its wider decision to withdraw troops, which was completely unnecessary, but more from an operational perspective on closing Bagram Air Base, which I feel may need to be reopened. It's north of Kabul. It's got 2 runways. It's much, much more isolated and would have been the perfect location of which to continue the evacuation.
And could we have done that without the Americans involved?
No, we couldn't. But this is where we've always offered, I think, assistance to the Americans. They've always enjoyed our understanding of the wider situation. That was absolutely the case in the Second World War, and that's formed the special relationship. Our grasp of the bigger picture, offering suggestions and ideas and solutions, and getting the Americans to rethink. That's absented itself over the last number of months, indeed, the last few years. The back channels are simply not there. And we're making, as I said in the chamber last week on the recall debate, some fundamental schoolboy errors with Afghanistan. The bigger game here is to do with China, Russia, and indeed Iran. And look where Afghanistan sits, and yet we're absenting ourselves from this part of the world.
Okay, Ben, if things are so inadequate, then shouldn't the Foreign Secretary consider his position?
Well, like I said, there's an immediate operation now, a reshuffle. Many of us have been quietly calling for this for some time. This cabinet, this government was put together back in December 2019 when the world looked very, very different indeed. You do need different skill sets, different types of leadership, given the challenges that we now face. And I'm sure the Prime Minister will be considering that.
On this question of who gets left behind, now that we know that the Americans will end their mission as soon as all Americans are out of Afghanistan, if we still have people there, then that's the point where they get left behind if we can't keep the evacuation from Kabul airport running without the Americans.
That's correct. And that takes me back to the Bagram Air Base or securing land corridors, discussing these with the Taliban to get safe passage.
Do you think we could still do that? We could still do that now? Open up a route to Bagram?
Well, absolutely, could be possible. But again, going back to our special relationship, we are the ones that need to recognize or work with the Americans to say this would be the safer way to get people out. The way the Bagram was abandoned without anybody being told, including ourselves, shows how the relationships have broken down. The Afghan security forces weren't even aware that the airport had been abandoned until 2 hours later. by which time it had been looted. It's the perfect stepping stone out of the country. And there are actually thousands more Americans and American contractors. We think we have a challenge here. Theirs is a number of times greater simply because of their larger footprint in the country. So there will be demands, and I know there are, by American politicians asking the president to reconsider. He's already slipped one deadline. I suspect it will happen again. But it requires a coordinated effort. And that, again, I go back to, is what Britain used to be good at. And we need to get back to being good at it again.
Tobias Ellwood MP, thank you.
Time now, 7 minutes to 9.